You tell me when you want to start in. Okay, so then, well, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Garden Tomb. My name is Cesar, and I have the privilege of guiding you in this very special place. I come originally from a small country in South America, from Paraguay, and I have the privilege of serving you. And today we're going to be talking about the events of the crucifixion, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. So we're going to start the journey this way. We're going to go to a viewing platform, and there we're going to, and as we walk to the viewing platform, I'll tell you about the place.
Excellent.
So, do you guys have the chance to visit the old city before you came here?
Yes.
Oh, okay, you've been there. Okay. Now, the reason why I ask this question is simply because the Garden Tomb is identified by the archaeological community as one of two official possibilities for the place of the crucifixion, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. And I think it's important to clarify that the Garden Tomb does not claim, we do not make any dogmatic claims about the place as being the place. We say it is a possibility that fits within the biblical profile. Everything that we're going to see in this place goes according to what we see in the gospel accounts.
So pretty much this is a very nice place to have people see and determine for themselves what fits their beliefs most.
Exactly. So what we do here, we present the historical and archaeological facts, but we don't make the decision for people. We let people decide for themselves. At the end of the day, what is more important for us about the place is the spiritual aspect of the place, the spiritual meaning of the place. And when we talk about the place, we say that it is one of two official possibilities. And we word it that way because in reality, over the centuries, especially in recent centuries, several places were identified. Altogether, about 7 places. But out of the 7 places that were identified over the centuries, only 2 locations have more historical and archaeological foundation. So you have the oldest tradition, which is the location of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre was established in the 4th century after Christ. And over the centuries, that place has been known as the traditional site. And even to this day, it is identified as the traditional site. Now, in recent centuries, in the mid-19th century, scholars began to identify this location as another possibility, since the place has many historical and archaeological features that fit the profile that we see in the gospel accounts. Now, it all began in the year 1842 when a German scholar by the name of Otto Thenius wrote about this place over here as the possible location for Golgotha. And I do apologize for the noise. It can be a little bit loud over here. In 1842, this German scholar by the name of Otto Thenius, he was the first one to document this location as the possible location for a Golgotha. And when I talk about Golgotha, I'm talking about the name of the place of the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. The Bible says in the Gospel of Mark chapter 15 that they brought Jesus to the place called Golgotha or Golgotha, which is translated as the place of a skull. Now the name Golgotha simply means Golgolet in the Aramaic language. In English, people tend to use the word Calvary, which is from the Latin Calvaria, which also means skull. So whenever we talk about Calvary, Golgotha, or the place of a skull, we're actually talking about the same place, but in different languages. So why don't we move over? No, there are only two people there. Okay, we're okay. So, Golgotha, Calvary, the place of the skull, or a skull. In ancient times, here in Israel, it was very common for people to name places after things that people could relate to or associate with, either based on the topography of the area or the use that was given to that specific location. And there are several examples of this in the Bible. And this is the reason why when people saw this, and right here in this area of the rock face, you can identify the eye sockets. In the center, you can see part of the decaying nose bridge.
Right.
Now, the nose bridge that you see connected over here is no longer connected today because that piece fell off in the year 2015, about 10 years ago. In the lower area, this area under my finger today is all covered up and most of it is buried underground. But when people saw this, people began to associate the appearance of the place with the meaning of the name of the place where Jesus was crucified.
That's unbelievable.
אני הולך אחרי זה לצלם את כל
Okay.
התמונות האלה.
Pretty amazing. Wow.
So, according to the Bible, the place of the crucifixion, or a Golgotha, was actually located outside the city, near the city. We see this in John chapter 19, in verse 20. According to the Bible, and also according to what we see in extra-biblical sources, we know that in ancient times, the Romans used to display their crucifixions outside the city walls, but also by the side of the busy roads, very close to the walls of the city. Because the idea of the Romans in antiquity was for the people passing by the area to be able to see in close proximity the suffering, the pain, the agony, and the shame of those who were crucified. In movies, when we see the scene of the crucifixion, we normally see the crosses on a hill
top.
far away, right? And people tend to call the place of the crucifixion Mount Calvary, but only because of a tradition of the 4th and 5th centuries after Christ, based on the tradition of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. But based on what we see in historical writings, and also based on the descriptions that we see in the Gospels, we can see that the crosses would have been actually a street level and by the side of a busy road. And if you allow me, I just want to read to you briefly a portion that was taken from a historical writing written by a Jewish Roman historian by the name of Josephus Flavius in his account of the War of the Jews, מלחמת היהודים.
מלחמת היהודים, כן.
He says the following, talking about those who were sentenced to the cross. He says that these people were first whipped, and then they were tormented with all sorts of tortures before they died. And then they were crucified before the wall of this city. According to what we see in the writings of Josephus, we can see that the crucifixion, just as it is described by the Gospel of John chapter 19, that the crucifixion would have been very close to the city walls. According to John, according to the Gospel of Matthew and Mark, we see that the crucifixion was right by the side of a road. We see that as people were passing by, that people will revile Jesus. We also see that the multitudes could hear some of the 7 declarations that Jesus spoke from the cross. And we also see that as people were passing by, according to the Gospel of John chapter 19, that these people were able to read the sign that was above the cross that read, Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews. And then John says that they were able to read the sign because the crucifixion was near the city. So we find ourselves in a location that fits the biblical profile. So if you follow me this way, right there you can see a section of the northern wall of the old city of Jerusalem of today. And I say of today because the city that we see back there is no longer the city that Jesus would have seen back in 2,000 years ago. Okay? What we see today is something much more recent, and it dates back to the time when the Ottomans were in control of this land. in the 16th century. They were the ones to build the walls of the city. But when the Ottomans built the walls of the city in the 16th century, in that particular section of the northern wall that we see back there today, including Damascus Gate, which is a bit more to the right, in that section they built following the same alignment of the second wall that was there at the time of Jesus.
Second one.
The second wall, the wall that was originally built by King Herod the Great. Okay, and in order to understand this a bit more, I want to briefly show you this map over here. Now, this is a map that was done by the Garden Tomb, but it is based on a map that was done by a local archaeologist by the name of Dr. Dan Bahat. And this is a very famous map of the alignment of the walls of the city of today, and also the alignment of the walls of the city from the time of Jesus Christ. Now, this is our location over here. And by the way, this is the northern side. We are on the northern side right now, to the north of the old city. So you can see over here our location, and this is the alignment of the walls of the city of today that was built by the Ottomans during the time of the Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent. Okay, and what you see in red, in dark red, in thick lines, that will be the alignment of the walls of the city, or the proposed alignment
during the Second Temple, the days of Jesus,
during the time of the Herodian period, right? Now, this alignment on the southern side, as you can see, is all traced with solid lines, because people are able to say for sure this is the alignment of the wall for the southern side, for the first wall. Okay. Now, on the northern side, you can see that the line is traced with dotted lines. That indicates that it is a possibility. Of course, most archaeologists subscribe to this alignment over here for the second wall today. There is a consensus among archaeologists when it comes to this, but of course, to say for sure, you need the archaeological evidence, and as you can see today, the old city has been all built up, so it is difficult to excavate in certain areas today. But this is the belief, that this was the alignment of the walls of the city. But over here on the northern side, you can see that Dr. Bahat traced the line with a solid line, okay, indicating that in that area you can actually say for sure that that was the location of the northern wall at the time of Jesus Christ, or the Herodian wall. Now, how do we know this? We know that when Herod the Great extended the walls of the city to the north, that over here in this area he followed the natural formation of the mount, because it provided him with the resources to build the walls. And in certain areas he didn't even build a wall, he just carved the shape of blocks in certain areas, right? You can actually see it today. If you look at the bottom of the northern wall today, you can actually see the natural formation of the mound. So all this to say is that here we can claim with all certainty that we are located outside the city of not only today, but also outside the city from the time of Jesus Christ. We are close to the city as it is described by the Gospel of John chapter 19. And we are also in a very strategic and also very central location for displaying crucifixions from a Roman perspective.
Do they know how many years it took to build the second wall?
The second one?
Yeah. We're talking about like 100 years, 500 years?
No.
Not that long. Because it just started before the time of Jesus, just a little bit before the time of Jesus. And the belief is that it was completed already before the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus. It was actually not a long period of time.
And who built it?
It was during the time, it was Herod the Great.
Meaning, were there his own people, or these are slaves, or these are...
It's both.
Both, okay.
Both slaves and people that were paid.
Paid by...
We know for certain that it wouldn't have been Jewish slaves, because Herod was trying to buy his acceptance by the Jews. And so
the only instance in which he used a Jewish builders was for the remodeling of the Temple of Jerusalem. Okay, so that is the only instance that he, I believe, hired close to 2,000 or 3,000 priests, because nobody was allowed to go into the temple, because it would have been desecration of the temple.
Sure.
Okay, and also they were not allowed to make noise. So in a way, they had to cut the stones. They had to make all the pieces for the building of the temple and assemble it together quietly, without disrupting the sacrificial system of the temple. But for everything else and for all the projects, and you have to remember that Herod the Great was an architect, per excellence. He was the man who built many beautiful projects, and his masterpiece was going to be the Temple of Jerusalem. He was so in love with himself.
Narcissist.
He was a narcissist. Exactly. He's the
classic definition.
Exactly. So he's the typical definition of a narcissist. In fact, not far from here, and I think this is another point that goes along with what we're talking about here, our location. Not far from here, he built a monument that he built in his own honor, because the people that were coming for the pilgrimage to Jerusalem 3 times in the year, especially for the people coming from the north, coming from the hill country in the north, coming this way into the city, he wanted the people to see, the first thing to see as they were coming to Jerusalem was the monument of Herod the Great.
Herodium.
Right? No, not the Herodian. No. This is a small monument.
Okay.
Right here, and let me see if I can show you. This is a drawing that was done by an artist. His name is Balázs Balog. He takes historical descriptions and then he makes paintings based on historical descriptions. And these paintings were commissioned by the Garden too. And the interesting thing right here, this is a recreation based on historical descriptions of this area. Okay, so this is the Garden Tomb property. This is the area where the viewing platform is. Okay, this is where we are. This is the rock face over here that you see right there. Okay, so we're looking at the rock face that way. Now this right here is Damascus Gate. This is a view from the inside.
Inside towards
looking outside. Okay, and then over here, this is the modern Nablus Road today, which is the Shechem Road in ancient times. It was also known as the Road of Ephraim, and it was also known as the Road of Samaria, okay? Because in ancient times, it led to that region of Ephraim and also the region of Samaria. So this is the monument that he built, okay? So his idea was for the people coming to the city.
What is the name of this monument?
I don't know is the specific name, but it is referenced by Josephus Flavius. Not long ago, some archaeologists found this hexagonal structure or foundation for this monument that was built by Herod the Great.
That's a new one by me.
Yeah, it is. It is just interesting to see this in this location, because it speaks of how people viewed this area over here. Because this area over here would have been an area of much transit. A lot of people would have gone through here, okay? We are very close to the intersection of 2 ancient roads over here. We are approximately 180 meters from Damascus Gate.
Right.
And we are very close to the intersection of 2 roads. First of all, with Damascus Gate, that was the beginning of an ancient road that went north. That in ancient times connected to a Roman road that was known as the Via Maris. And in antiquity, it led all the way to the city of Damascus in modern day Syria. Okay, hence the name of the gate, Damascus Gate, in modern times, right? But also, there was another road that went this way along the walls of the wall of the city. Okay, so this road, the road that you see down below, which is known today as the Sultan Suleiman Road, that road in antiquity. Let me just quickly show you a map, a picture here. So this road over here that goes along the rock face in the northern wall of the old city. In antiquity, this road going east, it led to the city of Jericho, and going west, it led to the port city of Jaffa, or Tel Aviv Yafo today. So we know also from historical writings that this area just outside Damascus Gate
Was heavily transited.
yes, and there would have been a forum or a market. So this would have been a public place, also a very strategic place for displaying crucifixions, because the Romans wanted people to see in close proximity the suffering, the pain, and the agony of those who were crucified. There are so many features in this place that fit both the biblical and the extra-biblical profile for the place of the crucifixion of Jesus. But then again, we do not make any dogmatic claims about the place. We say it's a possibility and it's a viable location for the place of the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. But at the end of the day, what is more important for us is really the reason why Jesus died on the cross. For us believers in Jesus Christ, the reason why he went to the cross, because Jesus Christ was not coerced into going to die on a cross. In fact, in John chapter 10, Jesus talks about himself saying that nobody takes my life from me, but I surrender it, I give it willingly, and I take it back. Okay? So Jesus Christ, he himself went to the cross. When he was in front of Pilate, he could have said, you know what? I'm not guilty. I don't deserve the death penalty. I don't deserve to die on the cross. He could have said that, right? But according to the Bible, according to what we see in the prophet Isaiah chapter 53, 720 years before Jesus was born, he already foretold that he was going to go to be slaughtered as a lamb who goes to the slaughterhouse, okay, without opening his mouth. Jesus Christ went willingly to the cross because it was the will and the plan of God the Father to offer the perfect sacrifice, the korban chata, that sacrifice for sin for the entire world. And one of the most quoted passages here in this place, at this viewing platform, is a passage taken from the Gospel of John, chapter 3, which says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, so that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life." So on that cross, he took our place, and he took upon himself our sin, our guilt, and our shame, and with his blood he paid the price that none of us could have paid, and he did it because he loves us. And that, at the end of the day, is the most important thing for us about the place. Now, whether it happened here or at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the story is the same. The story is the same. He died for you, and he died for me. So feel free to take pictures, and if you have any questions, I will do my best to answer your questions.